Well, good evening and welcome back to the second instalment of the Beginner's Guide to Coaching Judo Online. Just a little reminder, this makes up, these two sessions make up a revalidation. So I'll make sure that obviously if you're registered for this session, which you all are because you're here, then that'll all get added to your dojo profile. So you won't need to do anything for that to happen. Okay, I'll pass you straight over to Vince and we'll get started. So off you go, Vince.
All right, guys. Before we start, everybody could just pin my face to the screen again. Remember, it's just the 3 dots. Give me a thumbs up if you've done that already, just so I know where we are. Perfect. And everybody can hear me all right, yeah? Yeah? Cool. All right, so I want to get straight into it. I am quite conscious of the fact that, obviously, I'm talking to Kate. What I don't want to do tonight is sort of teach you how to suck eggs. I don't really want to start saying, this is how you do a taitoshi, this is how you do a certain technique, because I don't think it's going to be that useful. I think tonight I really want to... Oh, you're right. I want to put all of my effort into basically helping you create the ideas for your sessions, because I know you can do it, it's just getting your head into it, okay? So last week we went over the basics of the setup, so hopefully all of that's covered. Everybody's coming into this session thinking, well, worst case scenario, I know how to get set up online, okay? And now we're going to go down to the content. Now, when we first started online, for me, there was 4 things I wanted to make sure, for me to be bothered to teach online. I wanted to make sure that the work that we'd done was purposeful, it was safe, obviously, engaging, okay, and enjoyable. And it's really important for me. I felt like it was really important that it wasn't just something where I turn up with a stopwatch and just start saying, right, do some speed each comment, because I would not enjoy it. And if I wasn't enjoying it, there's no way that I think the kids would enjoy it. And especially, it doesn't matter whether you've got 50 kids, 200 kids, whatever it is, you've got to make sure that they're engaged in the session. And not only are they engaged, you're enjoying it. Because if you're not enjoying it, you'll dread it. Okay, so that's the most important thing. And when we were doing it, we sort of split our club up into 3 sections. So we split it up into the under 8s, the 8s to 12-year-olds, and then teenagers to adults. Okay, now it might not be age groups for you, it might be skill level, it might be beginners, intermediates, advanced, whatever it is. But I think it's really important at the beginning to have clear groups that you want to work on, because that will sort of dictate how you run your session and what session you actually want to deliver, okay? So make sure before you start, you've got that in your mind. And remember, with online, there are limitations. You're not going to be able to run around Dory session. There are things like when you're maybe doing a technique that you're just not going to be able to get across, okay? And I think as long as you keep that in mind, you'll find it so much easier, because there will be certain things that you go, well, there's no way they're going to be able to do that. There's no way I'm going to be able to teach that. But that's okay, because there's still so much more that we can do. And when you're setting up your sessions, when I first started thinking about it, I was thinking about all the equipment that we could use and stuff like that. And I think the less equipment that you use, the better it will be, okay? So if you've got 30, 40 kids on your class, and you said, right, kids, I want you to have Ichikomi bands, I want this, I want that, there's going to get to a point where some kids either don't have it, okay? Some kids are just not prepared, the parents aren't ready. So what you end up doing is spending half your session waiting for kids to get a certain bit of equipment, waiting to get another bit. Then there's a problem because they don't know how to use it. Then one kid. So I think limiting the equipment that you use will actually save you a lot of time. For example, like we've got our judo teddy, but we taught everybody how to use that. So that's one of the bits of the equipment that we ask everybody to have. If they don't have a judo teddy, we say have your judo jacket, okay, as a bit of equipment. Now it might be that you want to do some ashiwas or something like that. Asking them to bring their judo belt. Everybody should have a judo belt, or a pair of socks or cones or flip-flops. Something that's simple that everybody's going to have. That's fine. Or something that they can grab within sort of 2-3 seconds, like they can quickly go get it and they can use it, okay? So with equipment, try not to get too fancy, because it will just affect your delivery and what you're going to do with it, okay? So keeping equipment to a minimal is really, really important. Now, when I'm thinking about the sessions that I want to do, I am thinking, I'll break it up to the warm-up, whether I'm going to do a main technique, whether it's nail waza or tachi waza, and then how I'm going to finish it off. But the most important thing when you're thinking about developing your sessions is your engagement. How are you going to engage with that group? Okay. So, for example, actually, let's take it back. The biggest difference for me when I was thinking about taking online is when I stopped thinking about delivering a tutorial, okay, and I started thinking about running it as a judo class, okay? So, for example, when people come into your dojo, the first thing you'll do is you'll say hello to everybody, okay? So when we come on to Zoom, the first thing I'll do as soon as they start coming in the room is I'll say hello to everybody, okay? And that just lets them know that you're ready, you're engaged, you can see them, they can see you, and they're a part of that training group, okay? And this is the thing I think that made the biggest difference for me was focusing on trying to run it as a class, okay? And how many different ways can I create engagement with that class? Yeah, so everything that we're going to do is thinking about how do we engage with them, how do they engage with us, and how can we build on that? Yeah. Oh, one thing I should have said as well, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat box. Nick's gonna see those. If I'm going over anything too quickly, then just shout. Okay. Right. So thinking about engagement, and we can start with engagement from the warm-up. Okay. So you'll have certain things. Now with the warm-up, I think we said last week about everything that you do, try and think about a 2 by 2 meter square. Okay. That way you should have enough room, they should have enough room. Okay, so you've got stuff like jogging on the spot, all those bits and pieces. But the way I will try and get some engagement from the beginning is there will be exercises that you do in your club. So it might be with the show system that you go through the animal movements. Okay, it might be something that as a club you do and you're accustomed to. That's what you guys do. So one thing I'll do is once we've got ourselves moving, for, you know, a little bit of a heart rate, I'll then say, right, who wants to pick the first animal exercise? Okay, so the kids will then go, right, me, they'll put their hand up, I'll go, right, what do you want to do? And invariably they'll pick something that I find really tricky. Okay, they'll know the exercises that I struggle with, and they'll start to pick those, and then we'll do that together. Okay, then we'll pick another one, and then we'll pick another one. And it might be that sometimes some of the kids aren't as confident on the equipment. So I might give them a choice. I might say, do you want to do bear crawls or do you want to do crab crawls? Thumbs up for bear crawls, thumbs down, you know. And it's just from the beginning, that shows to them that you're listening to them and they're a part of the class the same way as you would in your normal class. You would interact, you would ask them how they do it. It's just letting them know that even though they're at the end of a TV screen, they're with you still. Okay. With the sessions, I think I said last time, I'm always looking for the first two groups, so the under 8s and the 12s and unders. I would only run 30 minutes. Okay, I wouldn't think about running any longer than that because when you're delivering, you're having to do so much more. So when you're thinking about running your class, there'll be dead time. You'll say, right, go get a drink, go get a partner. All of these things will take up time. But when you're online, when you're delivering your classes online, that time has to be filled. So it might be saying, well done, good job, John, whatever it is, you know, you will be having to do a lot more and there's less for them to do in regards of getting a partner, moving around. So I think if you go much beyond 30 minutes, I think you're going to really, really struggle for your concentration and you'll start to see their concentration going, especially if they've got other siblings in the house doing something else or anything like that. So 30 minutes, and with the warm-up, I would spend 5 to 8 minutes, I don't know, 5 to 8 minutes on my warm-up. And it would be a bit that's led by me, so whether it's jogging on the spot. And if they've got belts, put the belts down, use jumping, you know. As I said, I don't want to teach you how to suck it. You guys know warm-ups, okay? And you know what you can do on the spot. But the important bit is that you start to get them to react straight away, okay? So that you're asking them a question, what should we do next? What should we go from? But at the same time, you're still leading it, okay? If they're taking too much time, we'll speed it up, we'll move on, okay? So 5 to 8 minutes, that'll be easy enough time for you guys to get yourselves going on the warm-up, okay? And once you've gone through the warm-up, it's then about starting to think about what sort of session are you doing. Are you doing your tachi waza, your nail waza? how are you going to progress through your session? And with the Teddy, Nailwazzer is so much easier, okay? And when you're thinking about your Nailwazzer, using the Teddy on the floor, so I'm just going to grab mine a sec, sorry. There are so many options. So hold downs, movements, and it depends exactly what you want to do. So with your hold downs from here, going into any hold down, what I would do is start to create some sort of movement. So I'd get some sort of movement going before you dive in. And then that way you can start to see if they're listening. So if you call Hajime to go into a hold down, they're listening. If you shout Mate and they get down, they've lost concentration. And for me, that's just a way of finding out who's actually paying attention to the session and who's starting to drift off, okay? Now, with this, I would also start to encourage some sort of, sorry guys, some sort of mirroring. So with your warm-ups, okay, one thing that I would do is I will start to move, okay? So say we're gonna do some side stepping, I'll start to move one way, they'll start to move the other way, and I'll get them moving with me. And these are stuff that I'll use to try and get them back into the class. And this might be part of the warm-up, might be part of a drill that we're doing, but just some sort of mirroring. So you can see the whole screen, are they following you? And it doesn't have to be a huge distance that you're covering, okay? So it could be there and then you could try and trick them, change direction. And I would bring this into my Nailwazzer, okay? So one of the drills that we do for movement on the ground is obviously once we're laying down is our shrimping movements from here. So what you can do with this is you can say to the kids, right, you're gonna lay down, okay, in this position, and this is the position we want you to practice. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lead, okay? So I'm gonna move one way or I'm gonna move the other way, and they have to move with you. And it doesn't matter at this point where they're set up in the room, because whatever they're seeing is relevant to them. So you don't have to worry whether they're on one side of the room, they're on another side of the room. They're able to just follow you, they're looking at the TV screen, and you're there, then leading the session. And then you can swap over. And depending on how many people there are, depends on how much input you can say, all right, good, you're not using your leg properly, you're not, but if you've got 50 kids on your screen, it's gonna be really, really difficult. But that's where our spotter comes into play. So you remember last week we started talking about having somebody that can spot you. So that's really important. Now, there might be some of you that are thinking, well, with, say, the warm-up, for example, I don't feel confident that I can deliver a good 5-minute warm-up. That's when you start thinking, right, do I have somebody in my class that can lead that warm-up? Okay, and it's the same process. You all log on, you go, right, John's going to lead the warm-up for this bit. Off we go, we're going to follow him, we're going to all do it with him. The other option is to get pre-recorded warm-ups. Okay, so you think about the screen share. I think, has British Judo done some pre-recorded stuff?
We're releasing our first pre-recorded stuff throughout this period at the end of this week.
Yeah.
So
if you're getting to a point where you feel like, actually, I'm uncomfortable doing this, doing some pre-recorded stuff, some 10 minutes, whether it's Nailwazzer, Tachiwazzer, whatever your session's going to be, and then a screen share will help anybody who doesn't feel like, actually, I feel comfortable doing that part of the session. Sorry, excuse me.
I think, yeah, with the pre-recorded as well, it's kind of like money in the bank if you can't do a session because of whatever reason in your house or wherever your facility is that you're doing your demonstrations from. It's having a couple of pre-records in the bank is quite useful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, sorry guys, I lost track there a little bit. So we moved on to now. That interaction, as I said, is really, really important. Creating that mirroring, and it's all tactics you'll use in your classes, okay? And we know keeping their attention is really, really important, okay? So when we're running a class, we know if they're chatting in the background, we know if they're... So getting them to touch, having a draw where they have to engage with you at some point will bring them back, okay? And that's the idea. We want to keep their attention and we want to make sure that they're listening. So I'll have a few tricks where I'll go, right, come on, we're sidestepping or we're doing something, but they have to actively be involved with me at that point. And then that way I know I've got them back in the room, we can get back on task. Okay. So yeah, so that's that stage of it. Now there's things that don't work with the judo dummy. So when you're thinking about your newaza, things that are really tricky are like turnovers, all four stuff. That stuff is really, or at least I've not found an easy way of doing it. Okay, because the problem is, like if I was to say to you guys, right, we're going to learn a double lapel turnover or something, and my teddy's on the floor and my arms are going underneath, it's really tricky. So there's some things that I will actively avoid and sort of say, well, because we're online, there's not much we can do about it for now until I find a better way of teaching it. So there will be stuff like that I will avoid. But when it comes to newaza and like your hold downs and stuff, there's so much that you can do. Hold downs, arm locks, strangles, anything that's shown to the camera is fairly effective. You know, this doesn't look great, but it works for that. Now, I think with the older ones, with the more experienced ones, it's actually a lot easier because you can talk to them. You don't have to perform. You can do whatever you want to do. So you can just go through your process of running your class. But with the younger ones, I think there's a few things that I do to try and make sure that I'm still helping them with their knowledge, but also making sure that when we come back to the dojo, they're best prepared. Okay. So for example, a little newaza game that I'll play with the kids is a position game. Okay. So there's different positions. So one would be starfish position, where they literally lay flat on their back. Okay. The next one would be a turtle position. So from here, they would go turtle, where they turn to the side. And that's basically their defensive shrimping position. Okay. There would be tummy position, which we all know, all fours and standing up. And these little games, you can get playing. It doesn't matter how much space they've got, they can do this. And we'll run through the positions. And I know if I say to the guys, right, we're gonna practice a hold down. Everybody needs to be in a starfish position because that's the easiest way for us to practice. They also know if they've got their judo teddy, they're going to put their judo teddy down, starfish position, okay? And it's just giving them the knowledge that I know when we come back to the dojo, I say, right, everybody starfish position or uki and starfish, tori in, turtle position. These things are going to be set for us, okay? They're going to know exactly what they are. And then when we're developing their skills, so say I want to do a skill session with them on defensive positions, okay? So on their tummy, turtle position, and bridge and roll. We'll then bring all of those in, okay? So it's really, from here, I'm teaching them straight away to their tummy, then we're going into our turtle, then bridge and roll. And you can do the whole sequence with their judo teddy as if they're being held down. And I think this is really good to get their imagination going. So for example, if, for example, you're using their teddy and you're saying, right, your teddy is going to try and hold you down in Munigatami, you've got to get to your tummy as quickly as possible, okay? So they all start off in starfish. As soon as you shout for Jimmy, they've got to turn to their tummy. Then we go, well, actually, they caught your head, you're not able to turn to your tummy, so they're going to push you back, okay? So you're going to have to try and trap their leg. So at that point, they're then thinking about going to their turtle position. So from here, when they come in, they know they're going to turn to their tummy, but they can't. So now they're down into their turtle position and thinking about trapping their leg. And then the third position is, well, actually, they hold you down. So now you have to bridge and roll. And all of these things you can do online. Like, as long as it doesn't even matter if they've not got a teddy, they can still go over these basic principles of newaza and come through the other end with a bit more knowledge, you know what I mean? And I would use that sequence. I'd add more specifics to that, whether they're the under 8s, the under 12s, or adults. You know, those sorts of sequences you can build on. And I think the biggest problem when people think about creating online content and online classes is they're thinking about, well, I've got to make one session for this group, one session for this group, and one session for this group, okay? And actually, no, you can do the same session, but you just add the skills, okay? You just literally build on each section, okay? Now I'm conscious I've talked for a little bit. Still got quite a lot more to do, and I'm aware that it's been extremely random what I've gone over so far. Okay, I will get my chain of thought back in a second. But is there any questions before we move on? Because I know I've been quite hectic in that. Nick, is there anything?
There isn't anything in the chat box at the
Guys,
moment.
is there anything whilst I quickly read what I've wrote? No.
Not yet.
No.
I mean, people can unmute if they feel brave enough.
All right. Okay. So let's think. As I said, right, with this, I want to pass some knowledge. So forgive me for jumping around a little bit. So I might use this time to teach some more rules or some more terminology. So for example, stuff that I ignore in classes, and you know, I ignore in classes because there's a lot more fun things we can do. We can get hold of people, we can throw people around, okay? So a simple thing, Solomama and Yoshi, okay? So freeze, unfreeze. I will introduce new words into our section, okay? So for example, if we're in our warm-up, we'll be moving, we'll be jogging, we'll be doing whatever. And then all of a sudden I say, right, Solomon, they'll have to freeze, Yoshi, they'll have to go. And I'll just take that time to start picking up some of the bits throughout the session. So how long do we hold down? How long do we do this? How long do we do that? And just start introducing those as we go along. I can't read that. I've got dodgy eye at the moment. So Nick, if there's a
the first thing was from Eddie saying, happily listening to Vince doing a great job with a thumbs up. And then the next one was a question. It says, Vince, do you have any recorded example lessons for kids especially?
Yeah, I've most probably got about 100 at least. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll release some of our classes that we've done. So everything that I said that I've done before, we recorded everything. So it's all online. So I've got them all on a private YouTube thing. But yeah, so yeah, I've got everything. So I can send a few through. I'll create a little playlist, Nick. All right.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. And we can get the link out to everyone.
Okay, right. So I'm going to try and get some sort of chain of thought and some sort of process into what I'm going to deliver now. All right. So yeah, let's move on to how we create okay, nice and simple. So one of the things, if we think about, right, teaching a turning technique, okay, so if any technique that you can think of that involves turning your back to your level, okay, so if I'm starting with the under eights, okay, and say the technique's Tai Toshi to get us going, and I want to deliver Tai Toshi, I don't necessarily want to say to the kids, right, we're going to learn Tai Toshi from the beginning. So what we'll do is we'll play a little game. So I'll be number one, they'll be number two, okay? And if I call their number, all they have to do is a judo turn. So they'll turn one, turn back, okay? And once again, we're going to get that interaction. So if I call my number, I turn. If I call their number, they turn. Now, it might be that there's half girls, half boys. You could say, right, all the girls, you're number one, all the boys, you're number two, or mix it up however you want if you don't want to be that active role. But I think you being the active role, they want to hear you, they want to listen to you. So you being the active role works really well. So we'll start off with our turns and we'll try and trick each other. We'll call the numbers and then we'll go from there. Then we'll add a number three, which will be a race, okay? So if I call number three, we're racing against each other. So now we're being a little bit competitive. You know, we're going to try and beat each other. And then number four might be a random exercise for us both to do. Okay, but once again, it's a race. And the idea is to confuse them a little bit. Okay, so now they're having to think. And they can't just switch off. They can't just, you know, focus on their brother or sister doing something else. So we'll start on that. And that will be me leading for a couple of minutes, just to get us going. All right, now we're going to add it into our Tai Toshi. So now we're focused, all the focus is open our legs wider, okay? That's the next step. So we still do everything exactly the same and we build up. And then we build it to the point of where maybe we focus on having our hands up, we get our judo teddy, and then we start throwing our teddy, okay? But that starts from the 8-year-olds, and that will be enough. Once you've done your warm-up, once you've done your turns, your interaction, your throwing, you'll be ready for a game very soon to finish off. When it comes to the next level, I'll add a few skills. Okay, so I go, right, we'll play the game to start off with, but I'm like, then it'll be, right, we're in stance at this point, we've got our judo grip. Okay, when I call your number, that's when we turn. Okay, but you set the scene, you set it up, you build your skill levels as you go. Then it might be your sugiyashi as you add to it before you turn. And then even when I'm getting to the adults, I would still use the game as part of a warm up and just to create that interaction. But then you add your skill levels. And I think the easiest thing to do, or the best thing to do when you think about online, is breaking it down to raw skills. Okay, so is it balancing? Are you doing an each mark? Are you going to need to balance? Okay, so everything that I do from there is around skills for balancing. Okay, am I going to need to add my turn? If I need to add my turn, I might add a turning game. Okay, but I think the worst thing you can do is start thinking about, right, uchimata, I need to go this foot here, nice lift. And I think breaking the skills down to their raw components will make it so much easier for you to create session plans and session ideas. Okay, and that's pretty much all I do the whole time with it. I try to make it in its rawest form, build a few games around that, and then add on top. Okay, so with that, right, I'm just going to change the screen so I can see a few different faces. Is there any questions coming up before I carry on?
Not at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's think about when we're doing our session about how can we still create some more interaction. So one of the things I'll do with the kids is we'll basically, instead of mirroring, if I come forwards, they need to move away. If I go back, they need to move forwards. Okay. And for me, with the younger ones, that's as simple as it is. And we'll start moving forwards, we'll start moving back. But in my head, I'm thinking about distance control. How do I start encouraging them to understand about distance control and controlling their space? Okay. So if you think of your judo contest, actually that distance control plays a massive part of when you attack and when you don't attack, wherever you retreat or whatever. So with the younger ones, we're talking about moving closer to the screen, moving away to the screen. And it might be, all right, when I'm coming towards you, you're moving away. I want you to do a turn technique where you're moving away, okay? And vice versa. If they're coming towards me and I'm moving away, I'm going to expect them to turn here. As the levels go up, we start adding just a bit more detail. So I'd be thinking, right, if I'm coming towards you and I'm going to go get a grip, what are you going to do? Are you going to catch that sleeve? Are you going to grab the lapel? But I'm all the time trying to interact with them. So even like this, when I'm moving, I'll be coming forward. So I'll be expecting them to do something next, okay? And I'll be watching how they progress through to the next step, okay? If it's a gripping pattern that I'm expecting, I will set it out, okay, from the beginning. So I'll say lefty, right, righty, left, whatever the sequence is, and I'll spell out exactly. But then the next stage, once they understand it, is actually doing it with me. So whether we're moving forwards, back, we're moving to the side, and all the time just trying to create that level of engagement with them. And then I start asking them questions. Why would you do that technique? Why would you do that technique? And it depends on your group. With the younger ones, I wouldn't go into anywhere near that much detail. Okay, with the older ones, I would. Okay, I would expect them to start answering some questions, give me some feedback. And all the time, I'm just trying to create a level of understanding with the movements and the patterns. Yeah, does that make sense? Does that make sense there? All right, cool. Nick, is there anything for me?
Not currently, but I have one very quick question. Hopefully, you might be able to answer. So I've seen previously that you've provided you plan your sessions. You write down a plan for each session.
Yeah.
Do you have like you work to a set template? Is it the same kind of template to a face-to-face session? So how do you structure your session in terms of planning?
Yeah, usually one or two words, believe it or not. Yeah, so with my sessions, I'm useless. If I've got too much of a plan, it is terrible. But what I'll do is I'll say, on my session templates, it will have more like, it will have like the key objectives of the session. What I want to make sure I remember, is it purposeful? Is it meaningful? Is that in there? Is that when I'm creating it? Am I adjusting those? But then I'll say I want to do a session on Ouchigari. Okay, I'll just put down Ouchigari, and then I'll most probably put in, is it defensive? Is it offensive? What sort of Ouchi do I want? And then it might be that I decide to do Ouchigari for every single session, and I just build on the skills, okay? And it might be that we start off with the little ones, with some cones on the floor. I would just say get some flip-flops or some socks or whatever, and they put that on the floor. And the first thing we'll do is go, right, get into your judo stance. And then we're in there, and then we'll just literally practice going around with our ouchis, moving. And then as we move on, it might be the next group that we want to have it as they're moving on. So we would add a bit of movement before we switch, okay? It might be that we add, and each time we do, as I said, I break the skills down. So with the little ones, for me, it's about trying to trick them into learning the skills, rather than saying, right, we're going to do Ouchigari, kids. Because as soon as you say, oh, we're doing this, my biggest thing is I see them switch off. So we will just start playing games with using our feet, coming round, coming back, coming forward, coming round, coming back. Well, they need good balance for their Ouchi, so we'll start with the warm-up, practicing our balancing, our movement, our twisting, okay? And then as we go on with the adult, as we go through the levels, I'll be setting up the gripping pattern. It's same side of the opponent, okay? Sleeve, lapel, create a reaction, drag, and then we'll go in, and we'll just literally add each section as we go. If it's the Tai Toshi or any sort of turning one, same thing. What direction do I want to move in? Do I want to move this way? Do I want to move that way? With the turns, like with the little ones, as I said, I try and trick them. So say we were practicing our Tai Sabaki moving towards and moving away. So practicing our turns where we move this way, and practicing our turns where we move this way. So what I'd do with them is we would play rock, paper, scissors, shoot. So for example, say I wanted to go backwards turn, we'd both face away from the screen, and I'd say, right, we're going to go rock, paper, scissors, shoot, and then on their turn they have to show what they've done, and you'll see all the kids cheer because they've beaten me 9 times out of 10. And it's the same if we're moving away. So we go rock, paper, scissors, shoot, turn, and then you've added that in, okay? And all I care about is, are they able to turn one way, and are they able to turn the other way? The rock, paper, scissors is just to distract them from the fact that we're turning. I remember, this isn't necessarily something I would do in a class, but this is something I would do to create an engagement with the kids. So we create, you know, that fun. As I said, the younger ones are the most important ones, because they're the ones that are going to be affected the most from inactivity and stuff. The adults, I just teach judo. You know, I will ask them questions, I will, but I'm not as concerned, you know, because I can literally go out and start delivering what I do every single day, you know, the core of the teaching. With the kids, it's just about trying to create a few fun little games where they can be involved, and they're practicing the correct movements, but they're not worried about whether it's right or not, because what they're thinking about is, have I beat Vince with rock, paper, scissors, you know? And in the end of it, is it the worst thing ever if it's not quite right? For me, I'm not that worried, because they're spending half an hour engaging with me doing something which is better than doing zero. Yeah, so that's the way I would approach that, okay? Obviously, there's so much, like with the, I would always, if I feel like the kids have a lot of energy, okay, so you can see them buzzing and they're not concentrating, I'd get the judo teddy up and I'd get throwing straight away. I'd have a good 5 minutes of letting out some energy, do some throwing, go into your hold downs, and then come back to a game or come back to what you want to do, okay? Don't just literally, same when you turn up to your class, you can have the best plan in the world, but you know when you look at the kids, there's no way they're ever going to concentrate on the session you want to deliver. So sometimes it will just be reading them and saying, well, actually, they're not concentrating. There's no way I can do what I want to do today with that. Yeah? Any questions?
There isn't anything in the chat box, but I do have another one. Just linked to what you were just saying there. Do you tend to keep Tachiwaza and Neiwaza separately? I mean, you said then about doing the throws and then maybe going into the holds. So I'm just wondering whether you prefer to keep them separate or teach them separately on different sessions or joining it all up. Or
no, I might say I've got a block of 4 weeks, and say for example, we want to do some grading stuff. Okay, so maybe it's the under 8s and there's some show stuff that we want to do or something. And it might be that 1 week we'll do the Neiwaza element, and I'll add a load of games and drills around the Neiwaza element. Then the next week it might be the Tachiwaza. The next week we might quickly recap them both, then the week after combining all of it. But it's the same as any class you do. I wouldn't say I only do one or the other. I would literally see how the sessions develop and what I want to add. You know, there's loads of silly little things. Like with the Ashiwaza, you can use socks for sweeping, or you could use a judo belt for timing. You know, one of the things that we do with a kid is like literally with a judo belt, you literally tie a knot in one end, and once you've got a little bit of weight on it, you can literally start using the judo belt for your sweeping and your timing as you come across, and it doesn't really matter whether they're getting perfect or not, but it's something they've got a judo belt, you know your Ashiwaza skills, and you can set up weeks of sessions on Ashiwaza, and it might be that's a 5-minute part of your session, and you can have that in your next 10 sessions of just progress, just linking it in. And it's just tiny little movements, sweeps, you know what, you guys know, probably, you know the techniques you want to do. And it does simple stuff like that, I think, adds to your session. And once again, the kids, I possibly wouldn't do it with the really young ones because I'd be worried that they're going to lose their mind and whip somebody with it. But definitely with the older ones, the next group, I'd definitely be considering using stuff like that.
Also, we do have a question that's just come in, Vince. Well, it's been in a while, but I didn't want to interrupt you. So it said from Howard, it says, how many types of sessions do you run? Just juniors or seniors or junior beginners, junior experience, junior competitive, senior beginners, senior experience, senior competitive?
So I sort of lump, our club's only been running for 5 years. So the bulk of our club is younger ones. So 5 to 7 and then 8 to 12. And then we've got a few teenagers and adults. So for us, we don't really have an experienced like team. So I literally, the under 8s, they all get lumped in together because they're all beginners. Okay, then the 8 to 12s, they're pretty similar. And once we get to teenagers and stuff, I just deliver high level judo and they sort of have to keep up with that. So I think if you've got the time and energy, put them into specific groups that can work. But for me, those three, treating it as beginner, advanced, intermediate and advanced would work as well. I think you will lose your mind if you're having to do 50 different sessions for 3 kids here, 3 kids there. You know, it's totally different. And I think the thing to remember as well is when it comes to online, you've got to remember you just need to deliver you. So if you turn up to a class and you're quite energetic normally, you're quite playful, that's what you need to be on the camera. If you turn up and you're a miserable git, just be that as well. Like the kids will respect whatever way you deliver judo because that's why they've been coming. Okay, so there's no reason at all for you to all of a sudden put on a show. And I know what it's like when I first started doing some of my YouTube stuff and stuff like that. You become very self-conscious, but nobody else. That's how you sound in normal life. Like if you ever hear yourself back on something, it's horrible. Like I can't listen to it. I have to mute it. But unfortunately, that's what everybody else hears. So you sort of just got to take it as that's you, that's your delivery. And if they're in your club and they've been in your club for however long, that's why they're there. That, you know, you don't need to do anything more. Now, I generally take on a slightly different role with my different groups. So my younger ones, I'm a little bit more playful. I'm a little bit more energetic. And as they get older, I get a bit more miserable. Okay. And that's just the way I interact with my training group. So you don't need to be me. You don't need to be Neil. You know, you don't have to invent a character. You just have to deliver your judo, however you normally do that. And getting your setup right will help you do that. You know, that will, making sure you've got a microphone, that'll help it. You know, those tiny little things will make those difference in the quality of delivery. But don't think just because you're online, you have to invent this whole new persona. All right, you don't need to do anything more than what you do in your club in the first place. Yeah.
Just to chip in there, Vince. With my own club, I mean, we haven't been delivering online very long, but like I've been delivering from my living room for the last month or so. But what I've done is I basically deliver one session a week for half an hour, and I have other coaches deliver a half an hour to a different group. Mm-hmm. So rather than it all being on one person or it all being on me and my wife's living room, you know, we're able to share that across the club, across the number of coaches. So I do just a junior session, and then we've got a couple of other guys that do adults fitness session or a stretching session or an adults Uchikomi session. So you don't have to suddenly create this really extensive program with one person. I would think just share what you know, use your coaches, just all help each other.
Yeah. I unfortunately for me, I've done everything. So I've literally had to deliver every single session. But if you've got the ability to spread it out, definitely use it. Now I'm a little bit, my preparation for this has been awful. Okay, I've got so much stuff that's trapped in my head that I could tell you that I'm not able to access at the moment. So what I want to do is I just want to ask you guys, what are the things that you wish you knew to help you deliver? What's going to help you deliver online? Because I think that'll help me get it out of my head as well. So is there anything that you guys are really thinking, well, how would I teach this? I would like to be able to do this, but I don't know how to do this. What is there anything that you guys can think of now? Because obviously you're the ones that are going to go off and actually try and do it. So is there anything?
So Joe from Ealing said, do you have any fun, sort of easy fun games?
Yeah, I mean, Joe, you almost probably know, like, it really depends what sort of session it is and where you are. For me, I have a couple of games that are like my go-to. So like the game that I do all the time is right stance, left stance. Okay. And for me, when I'm teaching, it's really important that the kids need to understand, even from 5 years old, that there's a difference between their right hand and their left hand, their right foot and their left foot. And how many times have you tried teaching kids and say, oh, move your right foot, move it, and they're looking at you like you're an absolute nutter? So right stance, left stance is a really important game that we play all the time. And essentially it's that simple. They're right stance and that's left stance, okay? And I teach the kids, basically that's their judo stance, okay? So if you right with your right hand, your judo stance is your right stance. If you right with your left hand, your judo stance is your left stance. And literally you'll call right stance, left stance, and they have to jump, change, they have to keep their hands up. And from here, what they're doing is they're getting used to getting their structure. So I'll say chest up, like we set the rules of where your stance is, and you'll call it and you'll try and catch them out. So what Sam and I will do is Sam will call it and they'll be playing against me, and invariably I'm useless and they'll catch me out. So it'll be literally right stance, right stance, and then you'll go from there. And that is one of the games that we play every single session. And the kids get really into it. But all I want to do is make sure they know their right stance and left stance. And then we'll add square stance. So right stance, left stance, square stance. And this is just to ensure that they're not guessing each way. So then when you go left, they can't just go from one side to the other side. Okay. We'll also, so one of the games that we'll play is Sumo Superman. So basically, we'll build this up, and it depends the age groups. But if I go sumo, they have to do a rear technique. Okay, so like Ouchi, Oso, anything. So that's our Jigatai posture. Okay, but if I say Superman, they have to do a turning technique. Okay, so if I come up on my toes, and it might, for the younger ones, it'll be really obvious. I'll shout sumo if I shout Superman, and they'll be expected to either do a turn of any sort, or any rear technique, and they're building that with me. With the older ones, I'll literally just go into the position and they'll be expected to choose the correct technique at the right time. Okay.
We've had a bit of an influx of questions, so well, idea sharing and a couple of questions. So Lisa said that they've set out essentially a month of the competitive kids delivering fitness sessions each week, sort of coaching their peers to keep them engaged, which I think is really good.
Yeah, that's really good. If I had a group like that, I'd definitely think about that. When we were in the first lockdown, I got some of the older ones to come on Facebook Lives and stuff and do bits and pieces, but we didn't really have a trainer. That's a really good idea.
Yeah. And Jad has said he does one session for 5 to 14, but he uses breakout rooms and with the other coaches to take smaller groups on experience base for each part of the session.
Yeah, that's good. If you've got that infrastructure, I mean, I'm sure some of you have been running clubs for years, that you have extra coaches. Yeah, definitely use them. Yeah, 100%.
And then we have Taran has said before lockdown, he's doing a lot of work with gripping patterns and grip and move with the advanced juniors, but he's finding it hard to do online. Is there any ideas for gripping patterns essentially?
Yeah, so if there's something particularly complicated I want to work on, I know it's going to be a bit tricky. What I'll do is I'll first use YouTube. Okay, I'll go on, I'll get a few examples, and it might be that there are a few different ones, so I'll download them and put them together, or it might be I'll just show those clips. And before the session, I'll say, right, in this session, we're going to look at opposite side of the opponent, and they like to take a high grip. And then I'll give them an example on YouTube, then maybe one example or a couple of examples, and I'll literally, and you can easily do that, like you'll know the fighters that you like and they'll fight like that, and yeah, just find the clips, I'll get them on, and then I'll set the thing, I'll go, right, okay, so this high right hander wants to pull in, we need to get our hands on and create the space. So if I'm against the high opposite side, it will be feed your hand in, take the sleeves, create your space, posture up, and then it might be with the advanced juniors that I'll then say, well, what can we do from this point? And then once again, it's building their knowledge and building their interaction with me. And I'm starting to understand, well, actually, they haven't got a clue what they do in that situation. So that's got my next 10 session plans, because I know that they haven't got a clue. You know, so for example, like in normal sessions, like if I didn't know where the group was, say for Nawaz is a classic example, I say, right, I want you to do 1-for-1 on all fours. I'll give them a couple of minutes, 1-for-1, flat on their stomach. And then you'll start finding positions where the whole class can't do anything from. And then all of a sudden you know, right, we need to do the next 6 weeks on whatever position it is. And it might be you do the same thing and go, right, what do we do from this position? Okay, you're attacking with C and Aggie. What would you do next? Or we've set Alucci up and they stepped off. What would you? And you just ask questions. And if they're not coming back to you with any answers, you've got your next session plans already worked out. Go online, find your examples, and then set it up from there. That's the way I would approach it for that.
We've got quite an influx, so I'll just go over quite a lot of idea sharing and stuff, which is really good. Scott from Cropredy Judo said he's brought in a lot more Japanese terminology through these sessions, which I think is really good. And then Joe Schmeling said we run 3 online sessions per week. I run an advanced conditioning session that is attended by yellow belts up to seniors and downgrades. One of the senior coaches runs a technical session with lots of emphasis on posture and foot patterns, and also Uchikomi work. And then her son delivers a session for the red to green belt juniors. And then Fiona said that she's been covering the judo moral code and creating word searches and anagrams to help them prepare for gradings.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. One thing that we've done, we didn't do it last lockdown, but we've done this one with a lockdown warrior sheet, is one of the things that they had to do every week was an act of kindness. So they had to write down an act of kindness that they've done every week. And that's something that's really good. And it's good for the parents as well, because don't forget, like with the online, you're in a really unique situation as the parents are generally fairly close and paying attention. So we know how good judo is. And every single time I step online, I use it as a way of selling to the parents as well. You know, and I'm not saying like to their mums, like judo's amazing. I'm just doing everything that we do normally. And it might be that their parents never step into the club when they literally drop Johnny off and they go off for a coffee and I use it as a way of selling judo and making, you know, when we've done our family classes with it, you know, every single session, I make sure that the parents left thinking, well, I didn't know that about judo. I didn't fully respect that about judo. And when their little kids are in and stuff. So I think online at the moment with Zoom is such a unique situation because not every club will have parents that are involved and engaged. Because we were so new as a club, there was loads of parents that weren't engaged in the club, but actually now we've got a lot more engagement from them. They're asking, can we help with this? Can we do that? And it's just because we're putting that effort in online as well.
We've got one from Howard that says, I'm struggling to get my senior competition students to engage with Zoom. They all prefer to train offline, but non-competitive students are very engaged. It's just said, has anyone got any ideas essentially to reproduce a randori experience online? And Lisa's put, need an aggressive teddy for
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. And I think it's so difficult, especially with the high level ones who want to get hold of something and get hold of throw them. But for me, it's about framing. It's about explaining to them, right, there's no other option. Like, what do you do when things get hard? Like, if you do nothing, you're not going to improve. You're not going to get any better. But you can improve your knowledge. There's skills that you can learn. There's so much you can still do that doesn't involve. Randori is just such a small part of judo. There's so much knowledge. Like, Ono isn't the best in the world just because he's done a lot of randori. Like, he's so technically good. He understands his capacity to be able to think and operate whilst in a world championship final is unbelievable. That's because, like, now he's not worried about how much judo he's doing because he's in the gym all the time, because he's done all the basics. He knows the foundations of judo. He knows the gripping patterns. He knows, and there's no escaping it. You can only get so far before you have to learn more about judo, whether it's gripping patterns, and I would just say try and make it as exciting as possible, whether it's they have to go find some stuff on YouTube, whether they have to find a fighter that they like, and then replicate some training sessions, keep it higher pace maybe. You know, it might not be that you can do every session as a technique session. It might be that you have to do your Chikoni bands, it might be that you have to do, but mix it up for them. There's no way you'll be able to just stick to one thing with the high level, I think.
I think that sort of answers the next question or a statement, but it says, Brian says we did online training for 2 months, but found meeting in the park was better than online as they miss their friends. The cold and wet weather has put them off now, though. So I think that you kind of, answered that one already in some respects.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget as well, there is that friendship as well. Like, teenagers like the social space to meet with their friends and stuff, and so do the younger ones. But that's why it's important to get them to talk in the class as well. You know, if they're able to join the class before you and they can have a quick chat with each other and say hello, and, you know, even silly stuff like we will give them a couple of minutes at the end to have a little chat with each other before we then go off, or, you know, silly stuff like that, because the social side is it's possibly forgotten, isn't it, with judo, because we do so much around and we do so much fighting and stuff. But actually, a lot of the children come because they want to meet each other and they want to say hello and they want to see you, and don't just focus on the randori side, because it's such a small part of why people do judo. Obviously, we love that part, but it's not the entirety of the sport.
I think just linked to that, Joe said that she interviewed Ono's coach a few weeks ago, and basically Ono has spent hours and hours drilling technique and assessing and drilling it again. And randori is very important to him, but it wasn't everything. And it wasn't even the most important, or certainly earlier on, he did a lot of analysis and improve the techniques to solve issues. I think that's important, isn't it? That's solving, kind of understanding what those areas of improvement are and trying to analyze and improve.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? I think as long as you're setting out with your online, what do you want to achieve? Is it realistic? And then work your drills from that and set your class from that point on. And that's the easiest way to approach it, I think.
Yeah, we had another one here from Lair, I think it is. It says, how about getting competitive seniors to analyse some contests, work out like what white and blue are going for, what is the strategy, why some entries, etc., failed. I know you've done some work on this previously about performance analysis and analysing contests.
Yeah, definitely. We done a social night with the adults, and they had to find a clip that they found interesting. We literally screen shared, and then we talked through it. We looked at it. What do you like about that? Why do you like? What do you think worked well? What didn't work well? And then obviously I would sort of direct it, but yeah, we'd have an open discussion. I think that's something that's possibly forgot in judo, is about how we talk about it. Why are we not interested? The same way as we would comment on football down the pub, like we're all an expert when it comes down the pub. Why are we not having those discussions about our judo? Why have we not got a favourite team? Or you know what I mean? Like, for me, having those open discussions is really good. But that also creates that engagement at every level. And that keeps them. And it might not be that, because they might not want to be a competition fighter. They might want to go to be refereeing or whatever it is. And if they're interested in watching judo and all levels of judo, that's only going to help them. Whatever level they want to be involved in.
I think that's really important, and that might be a way around, if you don't have facility to deliver practical judo, being able to analyze videos and bring your club together might just be a way around covering a few weeks if you're not allowed to train, if you're not able to train, and just bringing people together. Just an add-on from the previous comment from Lair, it says there's lots of films on YouTube, and there's a lot that there was a lot in amongst the EJU coaching course.
Yeah,
but there's lots of resources out there.
There's so much out there, and you guys know Judo Inside, IGF, IPON, all of those stuff. There's so much judo out there. There's no reason why you can't find the fighters that you want to look at or you're interested in. And I think it just adds a different dimension to the session with online. You can do it safely distance as well if you've got the facilities, show it on the TV behind you. But online, it's all there. Everybody's already switched onto the screen. So there's so many opportunities that you have that necessarily you might not have in the dojo, especially if you're rocking up to a village hall. It's going to be really difficult to get that out, and set all that stuff up. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's all of the questions so far. Unless anyone would like to unmute and ask one.
Yeah. So I was very conscious about trying to teach techniques or anything like that, because you're all judo coaches, I just want to try and create a way of you guys having some answers of, right, I would like to teach X, or I would like to teach, where do I start? This is my starting point. And as I said, I think I could have most probably done a better job in the presentation of that. But
another question's come in here from Siren Judo Coach. It says, what about lessons that you've learned in attempting online teaching, things that you would now wouldn't or shouldn't attempt?
Yeah, so I think when I first approached it, I approached it as a Joe Wicks. You're going to copy me, okay? Obviously, I wasn't anywhere near as fit or anything, but I approached it as I was going to deliver this bit of content, and you guys need to follow me, okay? But it's totally the wrong way around. It's not their job to be engaged. It's my job to make it engaging, and that's what coaching is. It's about passing on that knowledge and about passing on the reason why we love judo. And when it's so easy to do when we're in a class, because we can see everybody, we can interact, and it's harder. And I know when it was on that computer screen, I would just start delivering sessions. It took me a good month or so before I think I got into a flow where I sort of realized that I could talk to them, they could talk to me, and we could go. And that's the biggest changing point. Everything that I'd done from then on changed. Because like at the beginning, I was teaching judo, I was showing Tai Toshis, I was showing Ashiwas, I was showing all this stuff. And a lot of them were like, what on earth is this guy doing? He's talking too fast. We've not caught up with anything yet. And the second I approached it as a class, the same as I'd approach it a normal class, it completely changed. And that's when I started to create more ideas with how do I get those techniques in? How do I get it across without just talking at them? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there isn't any more questions on there at the moment, but I think sort of the overview of these webinars has been really to hopefully, if you've already been delivering online, maybe just give you a few different ideas to change things up a little bit, or just if you haven't done anything online, to maybe just plant the little seed to have a go, just to have a little try at it, and to see if you can.